NCC 1701. No bloody A, B, C, D, E, F, but there is a G. We are now diving into the Constitution 3 or Neo Constitution class Enterprise G. I am Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are 10 secrets of the Enterprise G you need to know. Number 10. Word up, G. The arrival of the Enterprise G has meant that some parts of the expanded canon are now very firmly not canon anymore. Let's start with the Enterprise F. In Star Trek Online, that gets an upgrade from Odyssey class to Yorktown class. That now doesn't happen as it's retired in the early 25th century after the Monfet Gambit. As it stands now, the G has not been made available on Star Trek Online. Speaking of Star Trek Online, the Titan continued on with the Luna class, which showed the Titan, Titan A, and once that was destroyed, the Titan B also continuing on in that frame as well. Star Trek Fleet Command has now actually shown the Constitution 3 class, with the Titan A crossing over onto its platform in the Kelvin timeline as part of that ongoing story. The now defunct fan series Frontiers, not to be confused with the WizKids game of the same name, showed the Enterprise G turning up there as an Excalibur class. That was designed by Stephen Davis, but now actually most of that would focus more on the Enterprise H. Unfortunately, it's difficult to find some of that, but you can still see images of that online. Number 9. Marvelous Medical. Among some of the most impressive sets built for the Titan A was in fact the medical bay, which Dave Blass, production designer, went into a lot more detail about. You never really know what action is going to take place there. Usually it's one person in a bed, but it's a huge ship, so you really need 10 to 12 beds. But that's a giant waste of space and money. Then you need a surgery bed and somewhere to sit and talk, as well as somewhere to look at medical readouts. So sickbay was just wrangling of the time and money beast and making it as big yet interesting as possible. Costs were further reduced actually for this set by the introduction of these kind of large OLED holographic type tubes. This holographic was very, very deliberate, as Blass said that it was able to give a more technological feel to the room without actually upping the budget considerably. Number 8. Pursuit KRAUSE. The design of the Enterprise G was based on the Shangri-La class and also inspired by the designs of Trek fan and designer Larry Miller in the 1980s, as Bill Krause explained. Originally, the idea for the Shangri-La class was something that could both stand out but also very much blend in with some of the original series movies as well. In fact, Krause looked to Andy Probert's designs so that it would be something that you could see theoretically becoming part of the lineage of Starfleet. Miller's Hornet class design was also used as a bit of inspiration for what would turn up as the USS Intrepid as well. Krause actually never expected this design to play as pivotal a role as possible. Terry Matalas found these designs via Krause's Instagram account and commissioned Krause to build a model for him. He thought it might show up in the background of an episode here or there, not in the, well, hero form it ended up taking in season 3. Number 7. Set pieces. 18 new sets were built for the Titan A, which of course would go on to be the Enterprise G. You might have noticed that the lower section of La Sirena was reused as the bridge of the Shrike, whereas, well, the standing set of the Stargazer's bridge from season 2 became the skeleton of what would become the Titan A's bridge in season 3. New OLED screens were added to the Titan A bridge, along with some more panels, platforms, and stations, including the one that Picard used to fire torpedoes at one point. The observation lounge as well was given a bit of a touch-up from what we saw in season 2, with the addition of course, the new models away from the Stargazer and Sagan class, moving towards the Constitution 3, and of course, the Luna class as well. With all of these new sets being designed, and the previously mentioned medical bay being the most complex of them, this was a massive undertaking at a time when a lot of what we see on screen is computer generated. Number 6. Shangri-La. The Enterprise G can trace its design lineage back to the 23rd century, with the original USS Titan being a Shangri-La class under the command of Captain Savick. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but the shuttle that Riker and Picard borrow to go over to the Helios 12 is in fact named the Savick after the captain of the first Titan. The Constitution 3 class was effectively a 25th century update of that original Shangri-La class, with the Luna class sort of slipping in the middle, if you like. Let's call that the grunge phase in the middle of their upbringing, and that, by the way, is not a word against Sean Tarango's design of the Luna class, which I love. While the overall design of the Constitution 3 is based heavily on the Shangri-La class, the actual nacelles were borrowed from Season 2's Sagan-class USS Stargazer, with this difference being that they could be opened and tinkered with by some captain-level grease monkeys. Number 5. Downsizing in the move. If you trace things from the original Enterprise right up to the Enterprise F, you can see that there is a trend of Enterprises tend to get bigger and bigger and bigger. You had crews of about 400 back in Kirk's day, right up to over 1,000 in Picard's day. You might think that, well, hold on, the Enterprise E didn't have anything like that complement, and you would be correct, although the Sovereign class is quite a bit longer than the Enterprise D's Galaxy class, so we're continuing that trend. Having said that as well, the Sovereign class was just over 600 meters, where the Odyssey class Enterprise F is about 1 kilometer long, so it's getting a bit ridiculous at that point. That's not even taking into account the Universe class Enterprise J. The Constitution 3 class actually brings everything down again, and this was a conscious decision by Terry Matalas, who explained in an interview with Inverse.com that he wanted to bring this ship back to the exploratory nature of Starfleet that had been sort of... After Wolf 359, we'd started to see the introduction of a more militaristic side of Starfleet, which, led to ships like the Defiant, the Enterprise E, the Akira class. The Constitution 3 Enterprise G was a deliberate attempt to go back to science vessels and exploring vessels, and, in Matalas' own words, would have its absolute ass kicked in the wrong situation. Number 4. What's in a name? The path to the Enterprise G is not actually quite as straightforward as you'd think. Shangri-La class designer Bill Krause explained that they would start as the Titan but end as the Picard, which would follow the overall arc of the season and ironically leave the show named after the ship, but just retroactively. The moment, however, in The Last Generation, which sees the shuttle come up over the bow of the now Enterprise G to reveal the new name, is a direct parallel to the tease at the end of Star Trek IV The Voyage Home, when Sulu says, "Actually, I'm counting on Excelsior," and then they rise up over the Excelsior to see the newly christened Enterprise A. There was a fun parallel in this as well. You see, originally, for The Next Generation, we were going to have NCC 10017. However, the choice to alphabetize the new Enterprise in Star Trek IV The Voyage Home meant that we were going to not do the additional number at the end, but rather a letter. It was going to be the NCC 1701G. Now, this was brought down to 1701D to be more in line with the 78-year gap between the end of Star Trek VI The Undiscovered Country and, of course, the beginning of Encounter at Farpoint. Number 3. RE-CONSTITUTED. The decision to make the Enterprise G a Constitution 3 class was a very deliberate decision, and when the reveal happens, it makes quite a lot of sense. You see, there's a parallel in the end of The Voyage Home, which sees the Enterprise A revealed as a Constitution class as well. Depending on which version of beta canon you follow here, you could either believe that it was renamed from the USS T-Ho in the 1980s book Mr. Scott's Guide to the Enterprise, or renamed for the, well, now coffin ship USS Yorktown. But either way, it was a renamed existing starship. Terry Matalas has said as well that Season 3 of Star Trek Picard was an origin story of the G, which is why when you look at episodes, particularly The Bounty and The Last Generation, you see the Enterprise G, A, NX-01, and the Enterprise D, and the Enterprise F all on screen. Quite frankly, that's a lot of Enterprises. Number 2, not so new ship. There were a lot of theories around the arrival of a new hero ship for Picard's 3rd season. Of course, enter the Titan A, the Neo-Constitution class ship. There was quite a surprising reveal in that this was, in many ways, the exact same ship, Luna class, that a certain Captain William T. Riker had commanded. Yes, it was revealed that the Luna class USS Titan was heavily refit into the Neo-Constitution class. There's a couple of gags here and there where Shaw said he had to free up a few thousand gigabytes by trying to delete Riker's entire Jazz library from the computer systems as well. Now, it's not the first time that we've seen a massive refit of a starship. I mean, look at the Constitution to the Constitution refit of the motion picture. While perhaps not as drastic, it is still effectively a new ship built around the frame of the last one. In this, a lot of the computer systems, the nacelles and the warp coils were directly held over, even if they did receive quite a bit of tinkering and changes. This also goes away toward explaining the addition of the A to the USS Discovery's registry after it too goes under a significant refit in the 3rd season of Star Trek Discovery. It also helps to hide it in time as well. Number 1, Captain's Prerogative. The paint is barely dry on the hull, and yet the Enterprise G already has quite the lineage behind it. Now, technically, if we're taking the physical ship into account here, there's already been 3 commanders of the Enterprise G. So first of all, from the Luna class, we have Captain William T. Riker. Then, of course, you've got Shaw taking over for the refit and for what ends up being the last 5 years of its life. Riker does take over again for a little while when Shaw's incapacitated, but as we see, when the ship is officially designated Enterprise G, you've got Captain 7 of 9 in the big seat. While we are still waiting on Star Trek Legacy to show us more of 7 in the captain's seat, it's actually not the record for the amount of commanders of an Enterprise. Look at the original one. You've got April, you've got Pike, you've got Kirk, you've got Commodore Decker, you've got his son, Will Decker, you've got Spock as well. And then, with varying kind of like here and there's all the way in between. The Enterprise D had Picard a few times, so we had Jellicoe. Now, the difference there is that did stay the Enterprise D. And although the original Enterprise had quite a few commanders, the Enterprise A sort of, kind of oscillates between Kirk and Spock depending on the afternoon. What I'm saying is that it's a privilege to be a captain of the Enterprise. God only knows how long you'll be one for. #save7. Thank you very much for watching along. This has been one of the exciting ones because it's always good fun to talk about an Enterprise, and it's always great fun anyway to talk about these ships. So please don't forget to give the original article, which was written by the wonderful Clive Burrell, a read. That's over on whatculture.com. Thank you so much to our wonderful editor Martin for making this all look so pretty. Remember, go and follow us at TrekCulture on Twitter, at TrekCultureYT over on Instagram. Remember as well that we have a podcast that drops every Tuesday. That's going to be on all the podcast catchers of your choice, so you go check it out if and when it suits you. I have been Sean. You are awesome. Make sure that you live long and prosper till I see you again. Our friends in Ukraine, Slava Ukrainia. Everyone, however long it is until I'm talking to you, make sure, above all else, you have a wonderful time. Make it so. Thanks. Bollocks.